to the second episode of Huntley Express.
We have a jam-packed episode today with a very, very special guest.
And for those of you who have noticed, this is our Halloween edition of Huntley Express.
Ooh. Twitter.
So many of you guys have been involved on our Twitter, and you've been tweeting at us what you guys want to see, what you guys want to see more of, what you liked, what you didn't. So keep that up. We want to see that. Also, keep throwing those guests in there. Again, our Twitter is @ExpressHuntley.
Yes, and we would like to introduce a brand new segment to Huntley Express. It's a continuation of our first podcast, and it used to originate, and it was called Sports Talk.
It wasn't widely known for its success, though.
Yes, it was not. But now, we're going to introduce you with many new sports updates.
Away to Sports Talk.
It's Sports Talk with Mark and Kyle. Beep up, boop.
Welcome to the very first edition of Sports Talk with Mark
And Kyle.
This is our Huntley High School sports updates bi-weekly. Here we will be diving into all of the Huntley High School sports that are in season. This will be a consistent segment and will follow on every podcast.
We will be starting off with girls volleyball. Mark, take it away.
So girls volleyball has been absolutely crushing it this season. They're sitting at a conference record of 15-1 and an overall record of 28-5. With another big placing second in their 24-team tournament this weekend, the Raiders keep rolling. Senior and captain Taylor Jakubowski is making all sorts of noise for the Red Raiders. She served 25 straight in a game the other week versus Barrington. Congratulations, ladies, on your success thus far.
Mark, how far do you think the girls volleyball team will actually take it this year?
Well, quite frankly, Kyle, I think they can take it very far, possibly even a state championship. I got the courtesy to watch a game, and, it didn't seem like there was much missing from a high school volleyball team there.
I agree. I went to a few of the games, and all I saw was just dominance over everyone. They kept winning.
And knowing the seniors who are on that team and who are leading it right now, you can expect a lot from them this postseason.
I don't think there's any stopping them. They're looking like one of the top teams.
We also have an update from boys football.
Huntley football continues to show authority over the whole entire Fox Valley Conference. Huntley is just coming off a 64-13 win at home against Burlington Central last Friday. Now improving to 7-1 on the season, Huntley has high expectations for the playoffs and for the rest of the season to come. They have now won 6 in a row after losing to Jacobs. They take on Dundee Crown this Friday at 7 at Dundee Crown, so make sure you do not miss. So that was your little update here on the football. Now we're going to get into some girls golf. We got some pretty cool accomplishments that have came up.
So girls golf wrapped up the season last weekend with their first ever state qualifier, Katie Matustik. She qualified for state and she performed last weekend. She did play well, but she was not able to move on to the second day. However, congratulations to Katie and the amazing accomplishment that's never been done before at Huntley.
Good job, Katie. We support you.
That'll do it for this week's episode of Sports Talk. Tune in for the next 2 weeks when we do the next step.
Beep boop bop.
All right, thank you guys for tuning into this week's episode of Sports Talk. We'll have more sports updates coming soon for you guys. So without further ado, we'd like to bring on our guest.
Many of you may know him as quite possibly the best principal in this fine country. Ladies and gentlemen, you guessed it, it's Mr. Belin. Woo! Welcome on, Mr. Belin.
What's going on, fellas? How we doing?
Hey, Mr. Belin, thanks for coming on and being our second guest.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me.
So we want to start with your early life. So you didn't grow up around here, correct?
That is correct.
So where did you grow up at?
So I grew up on the south side of Chicago, in the city. So people can dispel the myth of, is it the suburbs? It's city limits.
Yeah. Kind of like that, like almost on the outskirts, or?
No, still in the city, but kind of close to the suburbs, near Evergreen Park, kind of where the city limits start to change. But
so how is that different from Huntley life around here?
We didn't have cows and corn. We had most of the houses, of course, just like Chicago are together, grid streets. I still took public transportation most places, so it was city living.
When did you leave the city and come out here?
So I actually left Chicago my senior year when I graduated from high school. I went down to Bradley in Peoria. Went through college. I ended up getting a teaching job down there. Stayed down there for 7 years after college, and then moved up here. So I kind of had some of that country living if you will, when I was down in Peoria.
Mhm. Well, Peoria is still kind of like a city, right?
It is. It is. I still had the city life, but when I moved out to be an assistant principal at Dunlap High School, it was just like Huntley, where there was city this way
Mhm.
and there were cows this way.
Yeah, cows, farms this way, and then,
Yes.
the city
Yeah.
over here. Yeah.
You mentioned that you were an assistant principal. So were you an assistant principal right out of college after you graduated from Bradley?
No, so I started. So when I graduated in 2005 from Bradley, I started teaching at a charter school that was Peoria's first charter school. So I had the opportunity to actually start a school year one, open the doors, brand new
Wow.
school. So it was an experience. I taught for 2 years. Then the dean of students who was there was leaving. And I said, man, why not? Like, that's the next level. So I at least want to go and check it out and see what the interview process is like. So I interviewed. Initially, I was told no by the principal. It was like, you need to be in the classroom. I could see you in the classroom at least another year. And I said, okay. So I had planned on that. And then 2 weeks before school started, he called me and said, hey, we want you to fill the position.
So it's kind of like out of surprise.
Yeah, it was super crazy. I mean, 2 weeks before school started, like I didn't even have my mind right for it. I had to get my classroom was already set up for the school year. So I had to go take everything I set up. I had to take all that down and go prepare an office. So I did that for 2 years, an assistant principal my last year at the charter school, and then 2 years an assistant principal at Dunlap and then here. So
So what did you miss most from being in the classroom then?
man, being in the classroom, it was doing all of the crazy projects. I taught 5th and 6th grade social studies. And so really to engage kids in the work, it was trying to do things that applied to them, and figuring out how can I connect with them. And it wasn't sitting and just teaching from a board. It was, you're going to do this and we're going to build
project hands.
a lot of tons of hands-on project based. If we were learning a unit, I always tried to figure out how can we make this more hands-on and project based. So
I feel like, personally, I enjoy hands-on work more, so I probably
it makes it more fun for the student.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what were your favorite projects then to do with your students?
man, we
Give us your favorite one.
oh goodness, we were learning about ancient Greece and Rome, and we learned about the Olympics. So we did the Olympic Games, and part of that, we one of the favorite activities for kids to do is that they had to build a catapult out of a mouse trap and string and popsicle sticks and tape. And I just laid it there. I said, you need to engineer a catapult. I mean, think like a Roman, think, and go out there and build this thing. So they came up with all their different models. There was trial and error. It was like, man, that kid shoots super far. And then this one, that's where it is. So a lot of kids went back to the drawing board, and the thought process behind it and the problem solving and the inquisitiveness behind it. It was awesome to see. And then we tested them in the hallway. So we launched marshmallows for a couple days down the hallway. It was fun.
Oh, that's fun. Did you guys usually get one that's pretty good?
Oh yeah, we got one that was excellent. And what happened was I linked up with the science teacher that was across the hallway. And so we did the science and the physics behind it. And then in the English class, they wrote a paper about it and their process and so forth. And then the math we measured. So I got everybody involved in the team.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Seems like all around kind of just like knowledge about all subjects instead of just like Rome.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. We heard that education like runs through your family and like teaching and all that. We heard you're a 5th generation educator.
So everybody, my mom, my grandmother, my grandmother's mother, like everybody back. I mean, you name it, they were in education. My grandmother taught in Chicago public schools in the Archdiocese for 40 years. My mom is in education, still in education, and education just kind of in the blood. So I kind of felt that was a natural progression for me, but I also grew up in schools. I would go to school, and then when my mom had to work on the weekends or my grandmother was sitting at home grading papers, like I was sitting right there with them. So
you always knew that you wanted to work in a school?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Think your kids will follow in your footsteps?
You know what? It'll be great because we have a need for teachers, and that need will, I feel, always be there at this point, as we can see. But, I want them to find their passion, but I at least want them to love school.
Yeah. So you became a dean at the charter school. What happened after you became the dean?
So I was a dean. it was crazy. I was a dean at the age of 23.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? Like 2 years of giving discipline to kids that were literally less than 10 years younger than me. You know what I mean? And trying to like right the ship and help them understand the error of their ways and, you know, you shouldn't do this, but you should do this, you know, and having that conversation and mentoring them and trying to help them understand life. I felt like those experiences prepared me to be able to connect with kids, right? And, you know, when you look at who I am here and just the type of person I am of always wanting to be involved and be out and about.
You're always in the hallway.
Yeah, I found that to be very important as a dean, because it was hard to sit and give kids consequences when I didn't know and understand them to some degree, right? And that was a challenge. So if I can learn a little bit about them, find a way to connect to them, I found a way to get into them. And so I got to take the chance to step out of what I currently do and not sit behind the desk, but just really get out and say, man, let me learn a little bit about why you do what you do, or why you can't sit down or stay in the classroom, or why you're late all the time. It's because this is you, right? So,
yeah. And then after you were a dean, because you were like really young then still, you became assistant principal, right?
Yes.
And that was because of the principal left, and then did they call you?
Well, I was a dean of students, and then there was a dean of academics, and they merged the two positions to create an assistant principal, and I naturally moved into that role. And that was just my last year at the charter school. I got that experience of doing some of the academic side and the discipline side, and then it was my time to look. I felt I reached a ceiling of growth, and I wanted to do a little bit more. I wanted another challenge, and so I went to Dunlap High School, which was my first public school experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I was private school, then charter school, and then went to Dunlap Public School.
Were you private school and high school as well?
Yep, high school and elementary, kindergarten all the way to 12th grade.
So it was your first public school like ever?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
You hear so much about it. My mom worked in public school, and I was able to see the differences of going to private school, going to teaching and working in a charter school, being an administrator in a charter school, and then public school. I was like, man, I get to see all of it.
What would you say would be like one of the biggest differences between a private and public schooling?
From what standpoint? Like as an administrator?
Yeah.
Or
like a teacher administrator.
So like a teacher administrator, like I've never been a part of a union, a teachers union. I always heard about them and know that they support teachers and so forth.
That sounds kind of cool. So.
Yeah, so I was like, well, all right. And so, but as an administrator, you're on the other side. Like the union, you're not in the union. You got the union that backs teachers. So if there's a problem and they come to you, you got the whole union against you, right? And so not having that understanding or deep understanding of problems and issues with the union, the only thing I knew was just be me. And so I connected with, like here at Huntley, all of the union reps and I just said, hey, I just want to create a great experience, not just for kids, but for teachers as well. And what can I do? And if there's an issue, like bring it to the table. Let's talk about it and let's figure it out. Because that's the only thing I knew how to do and the only thing I was comfortable with doing. And I found it to work for me. And that's just something I want to continue.
Well, that's something that makes you such a great principal as well. I know we all appreciate that. So if you were at Dunlap, how did you hear about Huntley and end up here then?
So what's crazy is down in Dunlap is a very progressive district. And when I got there, it was, hey, we saw this at Huntley. And I kept hearing Huntley come up of like, we saw their blended learning and this is what we want to do. Or we saw, their academies and like, this is what we want to do. And then they were like, Marcus, you got to go up and see Huntley. And I was like, okay, I guess I need to go see Huntley, right? As an administrator, I felt like I was missing out on something. And so when the principal position opened up here, I was like, well, I know that naturally that's going to be my next progression is to move to a principal. And again, I want to see what happens at that next level in an interview. What questions are they asking? What things am I missing that I need to learn about so that I can be better prepared to be a principal? So I took the opportunity to kill two birds, one stone, came up for the interview, got to learn a lot more about, do a little research on it. And then got the job, which is crazy.
So you weren't expecting to get the job at all, right?
No. I definitely pinched myself when I got that phone call. I got the phone call. I was standing in the cafeteria at Dunlap during lunch, and I see Huntley come across my screen, and I'm just like, oh, goodness. And my principal at the time, he looked at me. He was like, man, you got to take this call. I was like, okay, I'm supervising lunch. There's 800 kids here. Like, you want me to go take a phone call? So I stepped out to the side, and I was in the hallway. Dude, I didn't know whether to cry. I didn't know whether to jump up and down. I didn't know I didn't know what to do. It was just so exciting to know that it's a goal that I've wanted. And it's a passion that I have. And I'm like, this is an opportunity.
And now you're getting to live it.
So even though that was a goal, did it make you nervous at all to know that you're going to be leading now 3,000 students?
That was a point where I was like, am I super nervous of the fact that I got to figure out how to move and be a principal, or the fact that there's 3,000 students in this building?
I mean, you really think about it, like that's a lot of kids.
It's a lot. Like I went from a charter school where I started the high school, and we started with, we had 300 kids in the high school. And then I went to Dunlap and we had 1,200 kids in the whole school. And then I come to Huntley and we got 3,000 kids. I'm like, this is crazy. So I'm exponentially growing, and it's fun. I'm like, I got to figure it out, right?
Yeah, and I know you brought a new style kind of to Huntley High School, because a lot of kids have noticed you riding through the halls on your hoverboard.
Yeah.
Some students have seen you cruising.
So what's the story with the hoverboard?
So the story behind the hoverboard, man, is when I got here, there was a student that I was sitting and having a conversation with, and I don't even know how the hoverboard came up, but we were talking about it, and he was like, man, I got one. I was like, hey, can you bring one in? And I just had it in my office for a little while, and I was like, okay, I'm learning this thing, because I wanted one for my own, for myself, but I didn't want to go out and buy it not knowing like if I was going to like it or not. And so I'm in my office kind of rolling around, and I got kind of comfortable. And then, either after school or on the weekends, I'm having to be stopping there. I'm like, man, let me go test this through the hallways.
Days no one's here.
Yeah. And then I got good at it. And I was like, okay. And then seeing the traffic jam of everybody in the hallway was the challenge, right? Yeah. But I'm like, smooth floors, I don't have to worry about cracks, nothing like that. Like, let me just go do this. And the other thing too is, why not? You know what I mean? Like some people will look at it and say, like, you are a principal of a building of 3,000. Like, you should be doing something else other than riding a hoverboard. But in the same sense, like, I'm 32. You know what I mean? Like, I have a lot of kid left in me, and I want this to be an atmosphere where kids know, like, man, I could have fun while being at school. Like, school doesn't have to be this dreadful place, or even for teachers, like, I'm back here at work. Think about it. Going to Google. Google is very free, open. You got people doing a whole bunch of stuff, and they are having fun, and they are a progressive company. Like they own it. You know what I mean? I wonder what Amazon headquarters looks like. You know what I'm saying? So I wanted to create that atmosphere and still have fun, and take away some of the stress and the pressures of the job by just going and being with kids and breaking down those barriers of comfort.
And I know I speak for myself when I see my principal ride through the hallways on a hoverboard, it makes you a lot more approachable as a person. And
that was initially, I wouldn't say that was the initial goal of that. What the initial goal was, again, to create that atmosphere of fun, and if that is the piece that opens the door, that's awesome, because for me, now I can be approachable. And if you don't know anybody in the building to be able to go to, you're like, man, I could talk to this guy. And then you talk to me and I get you to the right place. Right. So, yeah.
So we've heard that you've fallen or fell off your hoverboard a few times. Yeah. Is that anything you'd like to an explanation or?
So what's crazy is, since I started this hoverboard venture, I have never fallen. I've hit a corner and been able to hop off but stay on my feet, man. I was at the homecoming parade, and I thought I would never talk about this again because nobody captured it on video, thank goodness. But I hit a lifesaver. They were throwing out candy. I hit a lifesaver out of all pieces of candy, and the hoverboard just went whoop, 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 kicked right from underneath my feet.
At the parade.
In front of man, in front of it was a football team, I think, at that point. Man, I fell so hard, and then I said, you know what, it is what it is. I'm good. Yeah. I popped back up, I got on that thing and rode. For me, I'm okay to making a fool out of myself in front of 3,000 kids, if that means it's gonna happen, because it's gonna happen to everybody at some point. And if people too know the comfort that it is what it is, it's okay. It's okay to make a fool out of yourself sometimes. Yeah. And nobody's going to hold that against you. I don't care. I don't care if I got memed. I don't care if I ended up on social media. It's like, man, think of all of the people that fell off their hoverboard. You know what I mean?
I've fallen off many times.
First time I rode it, I fell right off onto the concrete and I never rode it again. So they are pretty hard to ride for those of you who don't know.
Yes, they are.
Once you get like used to it, it's a little easier. But like, I mean, I feel like everyone who owns one has at least fallen off like once or twice, at least. So
Mr. Belin, what type of music do you listen to?
Where's your all around?
Oh man, I actually love a lot of music just because I've also too have been in different environments with students and and I DJ'd when I was in college, and just going to college and hearing like some of the music selections, like a DJ, you kind of got to know a little bit of everything because you never know what kind of job you're going to get called for, right? And so I my favorite, I guess, kind of music. I do listen to a lot of gospel music. Grew up in the church, playing instruments and so forth. I play piano, and I also listen to rap and hip hop. I love jazz. It's crazy, like jazz Sundays, just where I can sit and relax, and it's not that constant thinking of lyrics and listening to the stories behind the music.
It's more about like just the sounds.
Just the sound and the talents of people playing trumpets and pianos. Like I love jazz. I can sit back and just listen to jazz because it's mindless.
Yeah. Do you think that appreciation comes from playing instruments when you were younger?
Yeah. So I played trumpet when I learned to play trumpet my freshman year of high school in the band. I played piano ever since I was 6. My grandmother played for the church for 30 years, and she played an organ for 30 years. So I learned from the teacher who taught her, and I've loved it. I used to do recitals and so forth, and playing, which was fun. So those are the 2 instruments that I mainly focused on, and then I was in a jazz band too in high school, so I just got the love for jazz. My dad loves jazz; like he will listen to jazz any day, and so I think just being around him and hearing it, like it grew on me. I was like, man, this is cool.
So you got any specific like music artists that have impacted you, or maybe like made a difference, or just like favorites?
I would say, I mean, of course, like your 80s and 90s, and Biggie and Tupac, and like just hearing some of the stories of like of just life, but then too kind of hearing the 2000s. I mean, you got Chance the Rapper, you got Drake, you got Cardi B, and when you actually like people like their music, like for the beat, and they talk about that, like you hear the stories, and I always believe, I'm a firm believer that everybody has a story to tell, and you see how they came up from nothing, or came up from a supportive family, but they wanted to take a different route in life, and really just kind of hearing how people live, and too, how it can apply to, the students that I work with.
I feel like that could happen when people like overlook songs a lot. They don't really look at like the lyrics and what it actually
dive
means.
Deep into the lyrics. There's really a lot of inspiration.
Yeah,
it's like, it sounds good, but like what's the actual meaning behind it? You don't really look at.
Yeah, a lot of inspiration. And I was listening to an interview they did on WGCI in Chicago, and they talked about rappers and female and male artists that sit, and it takes some time to kind of write through, but like part of it is what's up here. You know what I mean? And it may be talking about something that they're going through or something that's challenging them, and it turns into a song. And, that's a great part of listening to the music.
Yeah. And that will do it for this week's episode of Huntley Express. Thank you, Mr. Belin, so much for coming on, and we look forward to our future guest.
And make sure you guys check out our Twitter. It's @ExpressHuntley. And tweet us or DM us guests you want to see or any questions you want to see featured on Rumor Has It.
And that will do it for this week's episode. Thank you, guys.
Shout out the Light Crew, by the way. Just want to say that.
And the cameraman and Eamon in the back. Check out his podcast as well. It's very good. And that will do it for this week's episode. Peace.
Thank you for coming.